Now, the subject of my talk is, hey, get on louder. The subject of my talk is, where do we go from here? Now, in order to do that, I have to spend a little time repeating where we've been, which means that I'm going to spend a little time on the last book that Barry and John and I wrote together called Violence and Social Orders. And if you read it, I apologize for repeating things that you already know, but it's the building blocks on which the rest of the talk goes, so I have to spend a little time on it. Now, what we tried to do in Violence and Social Orders is attempt to provide a whole new way of thinking about social, political, and economic organization and how it affects the performance of societies through time. The crucial thing that we try to deal with is, first of all, a whole new concept of the way in which societies are organized, which we call social orders. And second of all, to emphasize the critical role that violence has played all through history in shaping or at least inducing alterations in the way in which societies work. Now, the concept of social orders is simply a way by which, thank you, dear, a way by which we try to provide a new framework to look at how societies are organized. It's built around the way institutions, organizations act and interact to produce the structure that characterizes societies from the beginning of time on. There's only three social orders in our view. One is hunting and gathering societies, which is, well, mostly only of historical interest, although if you go to the Amazon basin, you'll be able to see it. The second is what we call limited access orders, or the natural state, which I'm going to talk about. And the third is open access orders, which is a recent development. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about limited access, open access, and how you get from one to the other before I get to the central issues that I want to talk about, which is what we still don't know and what I hope that I and a lot of you in this room will go to work on, because there are things that we still have not figured out and solved properly in the way in which we deal with these things. Now, a social order is nothing more and nothing less than the way in which societies are structured. It's an integration of political, economic, and social institutions and organizations and the way they function. It is obviously dominated by the potential of trying to maintain order in the face of perpetual threats of violence that have persisted and do persist in societies all through the world today. It's made up of political, social, religious, and economic institutions and organizations and how they interact. Now, the natural state, or the limited access society, is one that has dominated societies ever since the origins of agriculture, which we date back to the 8th century BC in Iraq, or at least what's today Iraq. And it continues to still dominate the world today. In fact, more than 75% of the world's population still lives in limited access orders. And so it's obviously of crucial importance in how we live and how we think about the problems we're concerned with. The limited access order solves the problem of violence by distributing rents to elites. Elites are what run limited access societies. They're a small percentage of the population that are elite and that have special privileges not available to the rest of society. They prevent violence amongst themselves by the fact that they mutually support rents that each receives as a result of support from the other. Thus, an economic elite achieves its rents by the fact that the political elites, which it supports with finance, it guarantees will have a degree of monopoly privilege, so they'll capture excess or monopoly rents. And that's true of all the other elites that consist of a limited access society. The elites are small in number. The rest of the society are, well, I well, I put it politely, say they're second-class citizens. That is, they are either in primitive times serfs, slaves, and in modern times have second-class citizenship rights compared to elites. Now, the limit of access order, which, as I said, has been in the works since the origins of agriculture, has evolved. It produces economic growth, as witnessed what you see in the case of countries and limit of access orders ever since 8000 BC. It sustains long-run economic growth, but it does so in a particular and unique kind of a way. It does so by perpetuating the gains accruing to elites, and some of which overflow to serfs, slaves, or second-class citizens, depending on what the conditions are. It is very durable, and in fact, one of the things that has been the heart of why our book has been, I think, so influential, is because it describes for policy planners like World Bank or AID and other groups why what we've done in the past to promote economic growth hasn't worked. Because if you believe the structure that we think characterizes limited access orders or the natural state, they're characterized by things that don't work well if you apply the policies of the open access order, which is our third kind of order, and which is the one that we live in here today, and which I'm going to also describe. Limited access orders are based, therefore, on exchange, on protecting each other's rents, and particularly they're based on personal exchange. It's who you know that counts. And indeed, in my years of wandering around the world, either for the World Bank or other groups, one of the first things you have to do if you go to what we call, laughingly, a third world country, is you better know who really counts. It's not everybody. And if you know who really counts, then in fact you're able to perhaps have some influence on the way the society works, or at least understand the way the society works. Now, limited access orders, therefore, have been, relative to what existed before, enormously successful. They have limits to how successful they can be, because, first of all, citizenship is limited to, at the most, 15 to 25% of the population. The rest are, as I said, second-class citizens. And therefore, the gains accrue to elites, and the support, and the elites and the groups that elites support. Open access is a completely different world. It evolved only in the last 200 years. Its most fundamental characteristic is that you have competition in both political and in economic markets. And the competition in political and economic markets means that monopoly rents, such as those that characterize a limited access order, monopoly rents are temporary. Because if you have a monopoly rent and anybody can enter into the political and economic market, they enter and succeed by doing it better than you are, better than you do. And the result is that they replace the existing institutional organization with a new one, which is more efficient.